I'm about to be confronted with a long-standing fear because my fiancée May is currently reading Gunslinger Girl, a 15-volume manga series which I've owned in its entirety for years now, but only read a little more than the first third. It's not that I didn't mean to do it at some point, considering that for a very long time I considered Gunslinger Girl to be my all-time favorite manga, and one of the biggest influences on the kinds of characters and relationships which I would come to portray in my own stories. In 2004, Gunslinger Girl received an excellent anime adaptation by Studio Madhouse and director Morio Asaka, the same combo behind Cardcaptor Sakura, Chobits, Chihaya Furu, Galaxy Angel, Nana, and Ore Monogatari. While these shows are stylistically and thematically diverse, they share trademarks like much more detailed realization of the settings than the original manga, and bright open color palettes, even in a darker show like Gunslinger Girl, where that coloring style is used to create a dreamlike, washed-out quality which harkens to the brainwashed, hazy, and traumatized consciousness of the titular girl. That washing over feeling, like the endlessly grinding wheels of thought that a fractured psyche reprocesses in the effort of self-healing, is cut through by the angelic moments of peace which Gunslinger Girl seeks to hold on to amid the nihilistically violent world of political assassination which the main characters all belong to. Oh yeah, and that's what the opening theme reflects, coming courtesy of Scottish band The Delgados from what became one of my favorite albums, Hate, after discovering it through this show. Unfortunately, the second season of the anime was handled by Artland with non-noteworthy direction, and I couldn't bear to watch it when it did the opposite of the first season and captured even less of a unique tone than the original manga. Even more unfortunately, that manga was being published in the US by ADV, a company which already wasn't doing the best at breaking into the manga market while Tokyopop was oversaturating it and Viz was dominating it, before the economic crash of 2008 killed both the manga market and ADV in its entirety, which would later re-emerge as Sentai Filmworks without resuming manga production. I distinctly remember picking up the first volume of the manga as a general fan of Girls with Guns, reading the first 2 chapters in the store, and buying it. Only after a couple of volumes, though, did it begin to captivate me with its nuanced character relationships, action scenes with careful attention to spatial coherency, and cool as hell, smart-feeling underlying political narrative. If the series doesn't pike your attention with its first few episodic stories, which usually focus on one Gunslinger Girl at a time, it will slowly engross you as you learn more about the handlers and their pasts, the history of their organization, and the nuances of what's going on politically in its fictional portrayal of modern Italy. There was something deeper about my appreciation of Gunslinger Girl though, and I think I'm probably not even going to fully understand it until I read it again, and even then, who knows. I won't lie to you, Gunslinger Girl is at least kind of a low-key lolly manga. I mean, it did run in Dengeki Daioh, but when I say low-key, I don't mean that it's not obvious that a show about badass little girls with guns is probably going to have some lolicon appeal. Gunslinger Girl is largely bereft of fan service, and its girls are drawn realistically without a sense of sexualization. Their relationships with their handlers, though, are blatantly uncomfortable. Older men who literally brainwash and control them to fight for the state against terrorists and assassins and shit. Plus, the main girl, Henrietta, is in love with her handler. But it's not anime love, it's something sincere and so much more simultaneously frightening and impactful because of it. I don't think that Gunslinger Girl is necessarily for everyone, in the sense that while it's an easily appreciable good show that gets good reviews and such, I think it's only going to really mean something and stick with people who can connect with these characters on a bit of a deeper level for whatever reason. With all of the characters having suffered some form of extreme trauma before their conversion into cyborgs, it feels safe to say that the series attempts to in some way address what it feels like to compartmentalize all of your past away and try to step into some kind of useful social role, even though you need constant personal guidance to even function. It's the kind of series where you might put yourself into the shoes of the girls or their handlers without realizing that it might be for the same reasons, or some mysterious shit like that. Obviously, I'd be able to explain it better if I just reread the series, but as you'll know if you've heard me talk about it previously, I still haven't caught up. If I do so soon, just to stay ahead of May and avoid spoilers, then I'll almost certainly make some more Otagonzo tapes about it. What I more wanted to discuss here, though, is the latent feeling which dragged me away from completing the series at any point over the years. It was a long time before fan translations made their way to Gunslinger Girl, and the manga ran for quite a while in Japan after the point where it had stopped releasing stateside. Even though I've always argued that spoilers don't matter, I've largely avoided learning anything too specific about what happens later in this manga, even if some of it's been hinted to me. But the thing is that the manga took so damn long to be accessible to me that I came to heavily internalize the story in the state which it was in, and was actively afraid of having my understanding of it change. It wasn't just about the years-long publishing gap. Actually, there had already been massive publishing gaps in ADV's original release. I remember only having the first 3 volumes for quite some time, and since the first anime season only covered the first 2, I had experienced that portion of the story several times over and developed such an intense connection to it that when the next few volumes released and started introducing and focusing on new characters which I hadn't developed the same intense level of connection with as the others, I started to become worried that the manga would go in a direction that I wasn't going to connect with as strongly as I had before. And that, I think, more than anything, was my real fear in returning to Gunslinger Girl. When I tried picking it up again around 3 years ago, I remember being immediately struck by how much less impressive the art was than how I had described it in my blog posts, lavishing praise on the first few chapters, as I tried and ultimately failed to do a full-bore review of each one. It's only on reflection of the whole scenario that I really see what was going on with myself. Gunslinger Girl was never important to me because it was good. It was important because for whatever reason, deep at the back of my fractured psyche, I felt an intense connection to these characters, to Henrietta in particular if the merchandise I purchased from the series is any indication, and the way that they affected my own writing after that point. These characters helped me to understand myself in some kind of impressionistic way that I've never had an honest shot at wrapping my head around, because I was always too concerned with the idea that I must love the manga because of how good it is. Gunslinger Girl is good, and I'm sure it gets even better. I'm nothing but excited to read more of it now, because if it really has something to say about me and the way I feel and think, then I want to learn even more about myself by reading it, even if I might still not be able to understand what I like about it completely. The fear I had before was a fear of leaving the tiny shred of an idea of who I am behind, or watch it transform into something I no longer recognize. But I was a troubled teen back then, and now I'm coming up on 29 and 7 straight years of art as a career, and not only do I think there's little chance that I'll relate to such a small and specific part of this manga anymore, but I think my relationships have changed with almost all of the media which I loved when I was younger. Whether I ultimately love it more or less, I can see where I was before when I think about what it made me feel back then, and I can see what I've become when I think about what it makes me feel now. I've written before on this channel about how you're never really finished watching a show until you're dead, how every time you encounter it in a new context, it will be a slightly or perhaps incredibly different experience, and there's no divorcing a show from the context in which it is observed, as it cannot be given definition beyond itself until someone describes it, and that definition is where the meaning lies in our relationship with it. After all, consciousness may be experienced temporally, but its understanding comes entirely from the past, and it is entirely dedicated to pursuit of the future. Is there any sense in looking at our media in anything less than a fourth-dimensional context? How can you even describe a show without describing yourself in the process? The Otagonzo Tapes is a series funded through the crowdfunding website Patreon. To check out more of my content in all of its massive variety, head over to the extremely organized playlists on the front page of the channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.